I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a very small agenda, and I'm going to, even though it's small, jump out of order and go to number 4, approval of the March 26th regular business meeting minutes. Can I have a
second?
Motion made by Mr. McBride, seconded by Ms. Campbell. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Those minutes are approved. Karen, I know I motioned to you before we started, but are there any requests for public comment? So, with that being said, we have an item on our agenda that says Agenda Focus, and this lovely young lady that's standing at the podium is going to spearhead this presentation. So I'd like to, ask her to sing for us at least a few stanzas first, but,
I'm not singing.
all right.
I only do that in church.
Leslie, the floor will be yours for you to do what you need to do for us.
I can always go. Oh, yeah. Are you ready for us?
I'm ready for you.
Do you want this on or?
I think it
Test, how's that? How's that? Good? Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's been 2 years, actually, since I was a guest speaker here at a school committee meeting. And so Mario asked me to give you some updates on some of the initiatives that the Pupil Personnel Office is sort of spearheading, but certainly with the support of the Superintendent's Office and the school committee via the Superintendent's Office. And so there's a couple of things that we're going to talk about tonight. One is an update on the Bristol Warren Regional School Living and Learning Center. And we did speak about that at length the last time that I was here. A new program that we have at Mount Hope High School called Try Employment, an update on our work with the National Center for Intensive Intervention, and then a little discussion of our work in the district around RTI and social emotional learning. So with that said, we'll go straight into our Mount Hope High School Living and Learning Center, a doorway to the world of work. And so what I've asked is, so that you don't have to listen to me the entire time, is that Jamie Medeiros, who has recently been married, and I don't remember her last name, I know it starts with an R, is actually new to the position this year. For 3, maybe 4 years, it was Sue Wazowski who retired. And so Jamie comes to us this year new, and was actually quite excited to be involved in a program that supports students from 18 to 21 that continue to be part of the school department, but by federal law, if they require services beyond that 4 years of high school, we support them through employment, job experiences, and a variety of assessments and agencies that we work with that are outside the school department. So I'm going to ask Jamie to come up. Hey, guys. Okay. You can tell me. Okay. I can hold it. Good evening. It's Rochelle, by the way, is the... It's Italian. That's what they tell me. Anyways, but thank you for having me. Thanks for voting me in earlier in the school year. Appreciate it. So, as Leslie had mentioned, literally, we would like to think that we're the doorway to the world of work for, I don't call them students because they have graduated, right? They've attained their academic goals and they're continuing with myself for their transition goals. So they are given the opportunity, I don't call them students, they're known as apprentices because they are out and they're actively learning at this point from everybody that they meet, whether it's myself or any other type of support staff that they have or in the community. They have their mentors at their internships, which I'll get into a little bit. But there's a lot of room for career exploration, particularly knowing, hey, this is the disability that I have. What are the kind of accommodations that I'm going to need personally? Because as we have learned, that disabilities are not one size fit all. Certain students that might have autism are on a spectrum, and they know, like,
that they don't like that feeling of being stereotyped, and that they have to be the proactive ones in letting people in the community know what it is that they particularly need. Not me, the kid that has autism, but me, the student that I will not name. But HIPAA. Okay. Yeah, so they're learning to acquire job skills, build confidence, increase responsibility, learn real-world social skills, maximize independence, and expand safety awareness. That's huge. Not getting taken advantage of, whether it's making payments or on public transportation. That's another big one that we do a lot of work with practicing. Yes. So areas of focus. This is pretty much the curriculum that's broken down for the full length of the school year. We go through units basically on these topics, such as I said with self-advocacy, finance management. We're actually currently doing that whole unit, from opening the checking account to good old-fashioned deposit slips, if we even use those anymore, and parts of a check. How am I going to start to budget? What's important? What isn't important? And then with all of these areas of focus, we still weave in the functional academics, like the reading and the writing is all really married together in every single piece of this curriculum, from interviewing, mock interviews, to like the soft skills that you need that accompany the skills that you do have. Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to look it on here. Ooh. So currently in our program, we have 5. One did leave us already. He reached the age of 21 and had the appropriate setup for him to move on with adult services. All of the students that we have right now are from 18 to, with us until they're 21. They all have the various degrees of intellectual disabilities. Those are the students that we service. And with that, as I said, they do get their functional academics, but with the real world applications. So they're not getting things that are not relevant to them, or they won't be familiarized with in the community. They get the opportunity to cook. We have the fully stocked kitchen in our classroom, which is such a gift. Actually, accompanying that is the laundry. So we really do get a lot of the everyday skills built into our classroom. And again, we can apply the reading and the writing and the math that way. And then actually exploring leisure activities, because that is something that as adults you have to realize, how do you fill your time, because it shouldn't always just be in front of a screen or watching video games. And how do you advocate for yourself that maybe I want to do painting, or maybe, like, believe it or not, we do a lot of collaging. We'll talk about a certain topic and then we like to look through the magazines and cut them out and show representations of what we're learning that way. The community opportunities, practicing taking the RIPTA. They take the RIPTA every week. So we've covered everything about how you get your bus pass. How do I look out for my stop? How am I an alert passenger? How do I ask for help if I need one? Make sure they have cell phones that they can contact the folks that they need to contact in case of an emergency. Oh, and then the community garden. That's another one that they get to do a lot of work there. And then they have the internships. Currently, we're at Walgreens, Petco, Roger Williams University, and Marshall's. And then they also have opportunities to mock interview with professionals from all over the state that, quite frankly, they like to volunteer with Looking Upwards, which is the agency that we work with. So day in the life, the apprentices, they come in at 10 o'clock, and then they leave the classroom here at 11:30, and they go out into the community every single day. Sometimes it's the library to prepare for the week ahead. Sometimes we go shopping to get the things that we need for cooking, or they plan out the bus routes. We complete daily timesheets because they are treated as a worker, that you're not just here and you're not in school anymore, but you are an adult, and these are your responsibilities, how to punch in and create a weekly schedule, obtain the state IDs and bus passes, practicing safety, using the library as a resource. Like I said, they use that a lot, understanding their disability and how to advocate for themselves, how to access the support that they still do have within the building, but then also how to access all the adult transition services. So when they're done with us, they have a well-set plan laid out ahead of them, and it's obviously not just for the individual that we're servicing, but for the families. 100%, it's such a help for the families to have this program. And then lastly, because technically they're not students anymore, there has to be some way for us to figure out baseline data about where they are, what kind of skills they're bringing to the table, and where we have to jump from, where we're building, what are we doing ultimately, right? So the roadmap that we're using is the CASAS system. As you can see, it's the Comprehensive Adult Student Assessment Systems. So I had put in over there, Assess, instruct, monitor, assess, because we administer the CASAS, which is whole degree of life skills, but again, reading, writing, math, and then take the test. We figure out where you are, which is another slide, and then from there, we get a benchmark statement that says, with these skills, you are able to most likely do X, Y, and Z. Well, that's nice, but we want to figure out how we can do better, where else that we're able to go. So we do the CASAS again because it does, it fits in that context of everyday situations. The standards that they give us are aligned with like Common Core standards, or like standards that we would measure here. And then it just comes with like certifying work-related basic skills. So I'm able then to pull from the results to get targeted instruction for where the gaps are. And then just one, oh, sorry. So this is just the sample that I wanted to give you because I do find it a little hard to explain. But ultimately, if you took a test, like any of the tests that students take, it'll give you a raw score and a scale score, and that correlates with a level. So over here, for the example, I put scale score as 205. That happens to fall on a level B, which is the beginning basic skills. And I know it's a little tiny, so I'll just kind of read it. So somebody that's falling at a level B for the beginning basic skills can fill out simple forms requiring basic personal information. They can write a simple list or a telephone message, calculate a simple operation with numbers, like similarly, I'm having a tough time reading, I'm sorry, I'm nervous. But I thought the important part was the being able to interpret simple directions, signs, maps, simple menus, and basically that this is saying that you can handle entry-level jobs that involve simple written communication. So it really gives a pretty comprehensive view of where that student is or how they would be in the community. So it's helpful for them to know their strengths and how they can advocate for themselves and what stuff is still difficult. And hopefully the goal is that, you know, I get them at a level B, maybe beginning, and I can get them into a C range, which again bumps up all of those skills. That's all I have. Thank you for having me. Yes, any questions?
How many students are in the program?
Currently, right now, there's 5. We started with 6 for one aged.
How is it determined that it's not everybody that has an intellectual disability, right, that ends up in this program after they graduate? Is there, do the students and the families choose to be in it, or is it something where we identify them where they should take?
It's actually an IEP team decision. We know that some students by federal and state law need to continue beyond that 4 years. The program is intended to foster as much independence and work skill and leisure skill as we can before that 21-year-old mark. So it is definitely an IEP team decision. Our numbers from year to year vary significantly depending on the cohort of kids that are going through. So right now it's a little bit smaller, so that's just a portion of Jamie's day. And so we've had as many as 12 apprentices because they can go over a 3-year period. Because if we have a student that is 18, that's going to stay until they're 21. So there is actually a 3-year curriculum that we cycle through. Okay, but everybody comes in with the assessment, and we move on from there and tailor instruction for the students there and beyond. We do work with Looking Upward as an agency to help support the students in the community in their job settings. So that in some districts, they actually send the teacher out with the students. We're not able to do that, so that we do actually utilize that service. So at about 12 o'clock, the students go to their work site or to whatever their experience is going to be for that day, supported with folks from Looking Upward. And that's part of what Looking Upward does. Many of those students also will be identified after 21 as eligible for adult services. And so they will have to select, once they reach 21, an agency with which to work. They go through a process where they are evaluated by the state during this 18 to 21, and they will determine a level of funding. So what the state will provide beyond 21 through that person's adulthood and life. And their goal actually is to get those students as independent as possible as well, knowing that parents don't live forever. As much as possible, they try to get the young adults ready for independent living. And so that's really the goal, but that could take another 10 years or 15 years, but that is more of a family choice at that point. The plans that students have beyond 21 are very family-centered. And so the parent, more than likely parents that have students that work this program have a degree of guardianship. And so the parent, along with their funding source and ORS and BWRSD, which is Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, will work a particular plan for that student that's beyond our reach.
So, I'm just curious, have there ever, because the IEP team is making the decision, I know parents are a part of the IEP team,
Absolutely.
but not, they don't call the shots. It's a collective effort, right? Are there, when it's come time to have conversations about whether or not somebody's going to be a part of this program, do you ever have conflict? And I'm not asking for any specific situations, obviously, where maybe a parent wants somebody to be a part of the program, but it doesn't fit in, or we think somebody should be a part of the program, but the parents are resistant to it, and how do we deal with those types of situations?
That's a loaded question. Special education, I hate to say it, is never without some degree of conflict. However, we have not had difficulties in, working with families to come to a good outcome for students. There have been those who have selected not to participate, and that's their choice, okay? They may have recourse, but as long as we document, and if they don't want to participate, if we've offered that, we do pretty much know the profile of a student who needs that kind of service, because they've been with us more than likely since they were 3 years old, and now they're 19. Okay? Any other questions on that? Our second program for the high school actually is our Tri-Employment program. What we realized is that we were missing a large body of students who may not qualify for our Living and Learning Center and still needed some degree of support in terms of work and employment and transition services that may or may not be eligible for ORS, which is Office of Rehab Services. And so we entered into a collaborative effort with the Northern Rhode Island Collaborative and the Office of Rehab Services to create the Tri-Employment program. So students who are in the Tri-Employment program can either have an IEP or a 504, but they're not currently receiving transition services through ORS. And that could be for a variety of reasons. They may not be old enough. They may not have applied. That could be a lot of reasons to that. That's presented as an option for students at 16 years old. They can enter into the program at 17. Unfortunately, the state does not have enough availability for the number of students it needs to service. So I'm going to have Melanie Lane talk a little bit about how we got involved. So the program runs through the school year, and also they have the opportunity for some summer work. It targets 10 in-school youth, juniors and seniors, and is called the Mount Hope Youth Employment Program. I'm going to have you talk a little bit about what they do during that time. Hi, I'm the social worker from Mount Hope High School. Tri-Employment, this is our pilot year at Tri-Employment, and I had learned about, what's up?
The microphone, that word.
It's on. It's on?
Oh,
How's that?
it's just-
Hi. Hello?
Yeah, I know.
You have to use the teacher voice. So I was at a TAC meeting, and they were talking about this program that was started last year, and it was at Portsmouth High School, was one of the schools, East Providence High School, and I was like, why don't we have it here at Mount Hope High School? Because there's definitely a gap, and we have a lot of students that have been identified with needing extra support, and they're unable to get employment on their own. So that was kind of where Tri-Employment kind of came into the system. So we talked to Leslie about it, and talked to Dr. DiBiase, and they agreed to kind of give it a whirl. So we did that for this year. So how it was set up is the first semester, it's for 10 weeks, it's educational classroom based. So they stay after school for an hour, we try to work it out so they're able to take the late bus home, and we kind of target, what do you need for employment? Everything from how to interview, how to fill out an application, making a resume, problem solving on the workplace, like basic skills. So we kind of tried to do that through just not just sitting and talking, but trying to make it a little bit more experiential. The woman who taught our class was from Northern Collaborative, and she had guest speakers that would come in to kind of talk to kids about the variety of services that are out there, and how if you have a 504, or if you have special accommodations, how that can kind of carry over into the workplace, and how to be a self-advocate. And then from there, the second half of the year, it was the paid internship. So we tried to work with what an area of interest was, although being our first time in the area, we kind of had to work with also what employers we were able to kind of secure that kind of would take a risk a little bit and have our students. So we had 9 students this year that successfully just completed their 10-week internship. They all got paid for that, so they earned $1,000. And with that comes great work experience. For some of our kids, it's just kind of going outside their comfort zone, saying hello to somebody, having that eye contact, getting out from the video game, so to speak, and just kind of building a situation where they can feel successful in a way that they hadn't been before. So they had areas where they had been employed were Fales Farm, Walgreens, CVS, Petco, Ciabra, East Bay Laundromat, and the Family Dollar Store. And for some of our kids, there's a component of it, similar to what Jamie was saying, where it's transportation's an issue. So they're a little younger, so a lot of times parents are involved. They had to have that commitment of being able to provide them to and from work. Or we kind of looked at how to read the bus schedule, how to take the bus, how to get the bus pass, and some of them were so nervous just about that, but they ended up doing it, and they experienced some success. They made connections with their work. Everyone's got a great report. We have on May 2nd, we have scheduled end meetings with Northern Collaborative, and we meet with the case managers for each student, the student, their families, and we kind of go over kind of like a report card. How did they do within their employment? What were their strengths? What are the areas that they might need to kind of develop further to looking at for their next job? If they're interested, they're able to apply to work at their intern site. And some of them have done that, and some have been hired. So it's been really a success, and it's been such a nice thing because having Northern Collaborative, they've really kind of been the bridge. So they're able to go and visit each person's work site. If there's any issues, they kind of address it immediately and at the same time immediately. And we would still have them meet with us every week in the second semester, even though that wasn't originally part of the program, because it was important to Ms. Martin and I that we stay connected to the kids and kind of do problem solving, because you know how it is. Kids who've never been out in the workforce before, they're going to kind of run up into all little things and get stuck. So we just really wanted to kind of have them a place where they can feel comfortable and have a voice and just kind of problem solving as a group, celebrate successes, and kind of work through any issues that might have been stressful for them. And I think it went really well. Good question.